Hello, and welcome to What If I Made Battlefront 3, Episode 2, Command Structure, Commander Mode, Spawn Points, Mobile Spawn Points, and some mechanics related to those. Let's start with the command structure. I saw problems with Commander Mode in Battlefield 2, and I'm concerned about a potential repeat in Battlefield 4. However, you can't just have an entire team be squadless and without any sense of direction or organization. You can only really pull that off if maps are small and have obvious positions to move through and attack from, essentially manipulating the players to go in predetermined directions. Battlefront 2 only had a default server cap of 32 and had no squad mechanics, but the maps were small enough and had enough obvious direction that squad mechanics were unnecessary. It wasn't something anyone missed. But for the map size and scale I mentioned in the previous episode, I feel a command structure is required. However, I consider the command structure from Battlefield 2 to be in need of upgrades, so on that note, I believe I've devised some improvements for it. In Battlefield 2, the commander basically got the ability to drop supplies, transport vehicles, radar, and artillery wherever he so desired. Some people would enter commander mode for that reason alone. You gained less points, but the system could be exploited, so if a commander resigned from office, their point gain would go back up. Kills from artillery would count as normal kills and award points at the normal rate, and recently deployed radar or vehicles would stick around. I feel this isn't the right way to go about doing it. If you make a leadership role award extra magic spells or something along those lines, you'll attract the wrong kind of people to that position. For Space Forces, the Fleet Admiral is basically the leader, who talks to ship captains, who talk to the various squads that form their crews. A Field Commander is basically the ground equivalent of a platoon leader, and adopting a leadership position will, instead of acquiring several benefits that other players don't get, incur trade-offs instead. In Battlefront 3, if someone becomes a fleet officer, like the captain of Star Destroyer, they'll be bound to spawning as a fleet officer class, which has only their pistol for a weapon and no body armor. Playing as a field commander on the ground, and being able to, for example, call for an orbital strike from one of the ships in orbit, will net you a hefty sum of assist points for the targets the gunner in space destroyed. But being a field commander may not be so appealing when a field commander can't wear a backpack and instead needs to lug around a 40-pound field command radio kit on his back. And there will be no magic orbital strike spell. You'll have to mark a target for a ship in orbit to lock in on and fire at, and another player will be manning those guns, similar to artillery systems from the old Battlefield 1942, just much cleaner, more effective, up-to-date, and with more encouragement to make use of them. Command roles will get points, and modifiers for those points, depending on how well their team is doing, and unlike in Battlefield 2, you still get the penalty for losing even if you quit the position or are impeached from it. There will be command and leadership unlocks that make the jobs of squad leaders and those above less cumbersome, like instead of having to carry a field radio around, one could invest some unlock points and upgrade the command console to fit into a forearm-mounted mini-computer, but it will be cumbersome in some way. That slot being used for a leadership role is occupying space that could be used for something else. Not even PlanetSide 2 may taking a leadership role directly hinder your personal infantry kit, and I think if we do that, then people won't take command roles for personal gratification so much anymore. Now this system would require some work in beta to refine and perfect to help balance out the point gain a leadership role should get, and properly balance the tools made available to them, and a commander role should expect some useful tools to help them fill that purpose. I was, for example, considering a requisition system where squad leaders and those of higher rank could request vehicle pickup or spawn vehicles or set objectives that granted points, and I contemplated the idea of requisition points being obtained by how well the team is collectively doing. But that's just an idea, and that system would need some refinement in beta to make it crisp and clean at launch. So as you can probably guess, most of the abilities someone in a command role would get would be based around providing benefits to their teammates or other utility bonuses. A supporting class, basically. No magic artillery spell, no magic radar spell. But you get my point. I think if we encourage leadership roles to cost unlock points to make efficient, and to incur some sort of trade-off to use, instead of having them bestow extra powers and abilities on someone with no downside, I think that'll help the player base get started in the right direction, and we can get more of the right kind of people in those positions. So let's talk a little bit about map logistics. You can't just capture a single point in an underwater facility and suddenly pop an army out of it. If we're going to actually have maps that are running 256 or more players, I feel we need to limit how many people can spawn at a newly captured point, so we can't have an entire army pop up from inside an underwater facility belonging to the other team. Control points will be limited to how many reinforcement points they can be used to create, depending on the affiliation of the closest nearby points. So if you're on the Rebel team and you capture a single point in the underwater facility, and the facility above is still entirely Imperial controlled, that control point's only going to be worth a small handful of infantry spawns. Likewise, mobile spawn points will function a bit differently given the higher population expectation. Transport ships will be mobile spawn points, but won't be worth an unlimited number of spawns. They'd be worth the number of spawns equivalent to the unoccupied seats on the transport when it takes off. Though if areas of the transport are damaged, that can reduce the number of spawns it's worth. So say you have a rebel dropship that can carry 12 passengers, but takes off with 3. It'd be a mobile spawn point, but only worth 9 spawns. Now suppose that transport ship takes a rocket hit, and the rocket hits in an area where 3 passengers would be riding in if the seats weren't empty. Those 3 seats are now damaged, and are no longer worth a spawn point. So the total of 9 spawns is now down to 6. Now, an Imperial all-terrain armored transport would have room for, say, 40 passengers, though an experienced driver may use unlocks to increase the carry capacity. Let's suppose it has 25 riding in it, and they can drop down to the ground out from under the walker via rappel cord. By default, the walker would be worth the remaining 15 slots in terms of spawns, though the pilot could upgrade this, or maybe a ground commander could use one of his unlocks and select a walker to be a mobile command post, which would get regenerating reinforcement spawns. People would spawn inside the cargo hold of the AT-AT in the vacant seats. And I'm implementing this mechanic to prevent a huge army from jumping out of nowhere, so I feel the system would be an upgrade, though there'd still be other modifiers for where reinforcements come from for squad leaders and the like, and the field commander unlock ability that can regenerate reinforcement points or otherwise influence where reinforcements come from, and other tools of that nature. I'm contemplating a system that would let captains have some customization for their ships, for example a captain of a capital ship being able to fit it for fighting in space battles, or alternatively specializing it for ground assaults with hangar bays that have a lot more air-to-ground transports and less fighters, etc. And ground commanders being able to set up control points, maybe for a defending team to be able to get a build-your-own bunker complex of sorts to go underground. And some base customization could decide what tanks are spawned, or if it's going to be an air base, or could get a shield generator, for example. That's a system I'd like to implement if it can be balanced out and if there's the budget for it, but that's a feature that may need to wait until Battlefront 4, since I can't implement it if it has too many problems that don't have solutions. We'll see about that one. Anyway, this concludes Episode 2 of What If I Made Battlefront 3. Like the video, and share it, and post it on all the various social media sites to let me know if this series is popular, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.